Survival's here. Today, we'll discuss a 2020 action, thriller movie called Greenland. Sit back, relax and enjoy. John Garrity is a Scottish primary designer living in Atlanta, Georgia, with his alienated spouse, Allison, and their diabetic child, Nathan. He drives home from his worksite, wanting to accommodate with his loved ones. They will have a get-together with their neighbors to watch the death of an as-of-late found interstellar comet named Clark. John utilizes his key to open the entryway, while Allison runs on her treadmill inside. He likely thumps on her room entryway. Their discussion is off-kilter as he asks after his child. Nathan gets back and is thrilled to see John. They examine the comet, which is from an alternate nearby planet group. He lets his dad know that his new insulin pack is way better compared to the insulin infusions. John affectionately says that he will continuously be his dad, regardless of the situation. He consoles Nathan that he is attempting to resolve things with Nathan's mom Allison. The next morning, they stare at the TV for a report on Clark. It is imagined that a portion of the bigger pieces should enter the world's air and wear out. John's neighbor Ed invites him back and affirms that he will see him later. Allison requests that John go to the store for latest possible moment arrangements before their visitors show up. As they approach the supermarket, John and Nathan notice an armada of military freight transport jets flying north in line, and see Clark overhead. While they are shopping, John gets a computerized official alarm call from the branch of country security. He is educated that his family have been pre-chosen for crisis shielding. Concerned and confounded by this data, John and Nathan rush home. Various protected vehicles drive by. As they rush inside, their visitors are watching a live news report. John calls Allison to the side to enlighten her regarding the mechanized call. They rejoin their visitors and watch the refreshed news. An enormous piece from the comet enters the air. They all hear a sound and John runs outside, seeing an enormous herd of birds fly by. A shock wave shakes the region and breaks the windows. Everybody watches with sickening dread as the live TV update shows the upsetting film. John indeed gets a computerized official alarm call. The message at the same time shows on their TV screen. He is told to be at Robins Flying Corps base to load up a departure flight. This applies just to his loved ones. They are not allowed to take anybody with them and are just permitted one pack each. Their alarmed neighbors rush out of the house to be close with their families. The Garritys pack speedily and plan to leave. They make sure to incorporate Nathan's extra insulin packs. Allison consoles Nathan, who is stressed over his granddad, Dale. As they drive away, their neighbor Ed runs out of his home towards their vehicle. He cautions them that Clark is a monster bunch of parts that are supposed to barrage Earth over the course of the following 2 days. The biggest part is supposed to cause a termination-level occasion. Deborah, one more of their neighbors, frantically asks John to take her little girl with them. He hurries off without her, realizing she would be denied section to the flight. As they pass through the town, individuals are crazy while they stock up on basic food item supplies. John questions why their family was picked for departure. There are still no updates from the White House. At Robins Flying Corps base, a long queue of traffic keeps the family from arriving at the entryway. John accepts a backup course of action as they pay attention to refreshes on the radio en route. They stop the vehicle and the family go on towards the entryways by walking. Nathan coincidentally leaves his insulin in the vehicle. As they arrive at the front of the group, John yells more than once that they were chosen. The frantic group floods towards the doors. A cop asks John for his I.D and standardized tag. They are permitted admittance with the QR code on John's telephone and their wristbands giving affirmation of their personalities. At the point when they unite their effects into one sack, they find that Nathan's insulin is absent. John rushes back through the group to the vehicle to find it while Allison and Nathan hold on to get onto the plane. Allison approaches a watchman to inquire as to whether John will be permitted to load up similar plane they are on when he gets back with Nathan's medicine. They are denied admittance once the fighter learns of Nathan's diabetes. Allison asks fruitlessly for them to be permitted onto the plane. They are accompanied off the base. John pushes through the groups and successfully returns through security without a moment to spare. He calls for Allison as he strolls toward the plane, yet can't track down her and Nathan. His wild instant message to her isn't conveyed. An individual traveler faces him about the medication in his grasp. He lets John know that a relative was denied admittance to the trip because of sickness. John discovers that his family were dismissed because of Nathan's sickness. He requests to land to track down his loved ones. The base is penetrated by the frantic crowd, all needing to be saved. Shots are discharged, unintentionally touching off the stream fuel. A few of the departure planes are obliterated. Many individuals are killed, however John barely gets away. Allison and Nathan are in the jam-packed road and see the blasts. She guarantees her child that John wasn't on the plane. John is feeling better when a trooper lets him know that his child was declined passage to the plane and that they left the base. Nathan's insulin pack is unfilled. Allison quiets him down and messages John. He gets back to their vehicle where he finds a note left by Allison. She and Nathan are making a beeline for her dad's home in Lexington, Kentucky. They stroll through the town until Allison tracks down a stole-from-store. She finds the clinical supplies and they barely avoid being shot. Allison and Nathan approach a couple to request a ride up north. Ralph and Judy Vento are additionally headed that way. Ralph lets them know they will accept them to the extent that Knoxville, Tennessee. He sharply expects that rich individuals won their pre-choice for cover on an administration lottery. At the point when Judy inquires as to whether they are isolated, Nathan tells her his dad is on a plane. She sees their wristbands. Allison illuminates them that Nathan has an ailment and they were denied admittance to the plane. John keeps on strolling through the stole-from city. Overall frenzy follows as an oncoming Clark lingers unfavorably in the night sky. He runs over a housetop party and goes higher up, expecting a superior sign. His short call to Allison is cut. John sees a truck loaded up with survivors and figures out how to hitch a ride. He learns through a young fellow named Colin that the military is flying from Canada to dugouts in Greenland. Colin lets John know that individuals were pre-chosen in view of their callings. John makes sense of that he was isolated from his significant other and kid at the army installation. Ralph keeps driving north and contemplates everything that Allison has said to him. He says that maybe in the event that Nathan had an alternate family with him, he could get to somewhere safe. He pulls over, escapes the vehicle and tosses Allison out onto the edge. Nathan shouts in dread. Judy unequivocally can't help contradicting Ralph's activities. They drive away abandoning Allison. The truck with the survivors goes down the expressway. Another survivor, seeing John's wristband, accepts just American-conceived residents ought to have been chosen. The man gets a sledge. Requests the wristband and begins to go after John. The resulting disorder toward the rear of the truck nearly brings about the truck crashing. After a long merciless battle in the open country, John kills the unfriendly man. He tragically sees Colin lying dead close to the truck. Allison valiantly keeps on strolling alone along the thruway. A vehicle ultimately stops and a thoughtful family inquire as to whether she really wants a ride. They are going to Knoxville. In the meantime, Ralph, a hesitant Judy, and an extremely terrified Nathan in the long run show up at the clearing site. Nathan lets a trooper know that they are not his folks and that he was seized by them. Ralph and Judy are captured and they neglect to demonstrate they are Nathan's folks. Nathan is detracted from them by the police and shipped off the FEMA camp across the street. Allison leaps out of the vehicle when the family approach a gridlock. She goes through the groups towards the camp, where a man assists her with searching for Nathan. They check through the tents until Nathan is at last found and they are brought together. The clinical staff have taken great consideration of him and given him another insulin siphon. They deal to orchestrate a lift for them to Allison's dad's home in Lexington on a tactical transport. The next day, John meanders through an abandoned area. He breaks into a house to find food and water and turns on the television. Different news stations report on the overall obliteration, with a commencement to the last effect. He takes their vehicle. Lastly arrives at his father by marriage's home. Allison and Nathan are not there. Dale is worried about John. Allison and Nathan at long last show up at a Staples shop close by. She calls the house, and they are gathered by John and Dale. They return to Dale's home. Depleted, however glad to be brought together. As they watch the reports on Clark on T.V, they acknowledge their destiny that they will bite the dust in the effect in under a day. Reviewing data he had heard from Colin, John acknowledges they could have sufficient opportunity to make a somewhat late trip to Canada to arrive at the fortifications in Greenland. The family examine it and consent to leave. John approaches Dale and lets him know he really wants to promptly pack. Dale says he will remain to deal with the pony as might have been anticipated him to. John apologizes to Dale for his off-base doings previously. He guarantees Dale that he will make every effort to save Allison and Nathan by getting them to the fortifications in time. A delayed repercussion raises a ruckus around town. They need to promptly leave. Dale advises them to accept his truck as it has a full tank of gas. They say their last farewells to Dale and drive away. John and Allison recall various difficulties on their excursion. They reconnect genuinely and are thankful for their loved ones. As they arrive at upstate New York, a crisis alert cautions them of liquid flotsam and jetsam. Fireballs downpour from the sky, obliterating vehicles, individuals, and bringing down a helicopter as they scramble to get away. John drives them to an underpass for cover. He breaks cover and races to a consuming vehicle to help an outsider. After some time, the meteor shower stops, leaving a significant part of the area ablaze. The family forge ahead with their excursion to Canada. They show up at the air terminal. John drives onto the runway towards a plane that is going to take off. The plane stops before their vehicle and a furious pilot goes up against the family. He contends that the plane is full and he can't endure anything else. Travelers, however, at last consents to take just Nathan and Allison. Allison in the long run persuades the pilot to take every one of them. Albeit the plane is full, individual survivors account for them. They figure out how to rest some time and are appreciative to be headed to somewhere safe. As the plane methodologies Greenland, another enormous section strikes off the coast. The resulting shock wave makes the plane accident land into the foundation of a mountain in a valley. John really looks at the cockpit. Just a single pilot is scarcely alive, however rapidly capitulates to his wounds. John tells the survivors he saw a tactical plane land about a pretty far. He drives his family and the survivors to the close-by airbase. The tactical faculty help them as the survivors rush to somewhere safe along the underground halls. The family embrace as they arrive at the fortifications. The commencement to elimination begins. Clark enters the climate and effects. We see flashbacks of their lives and friends and family in more joyful times. The urban communities of Sydney, Paris, Mexico City, and Chicago are displayed in absolute ruin. After 9 months, the Greenland station endeavors to connect with other possible survivors. The shelter entryways gradually open, permitting the Garrities and different survivors to see the fundamentally changed scene. Once more, overall radio correspondence has started. The everything clear is given and the survivors step gradually onto the Earth. Greenland at last connects with different stations all over the planet. They are delighted to be alive. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thanks and see you again soon.